All right. Paulie Calafiorie, Danny and I are so excited to chat with you, especially after your run on this season of the challenge. That was quite a performance. How are you feeling about how this season went for you? You're such an icon and a legend within the space, and this time we got a lot of icons and legends together in one space, but you made sure to steal that spotlight.
Well, as expected. um, I wish I was talking to you guys a little bit later in the season. I'll be honest. But one of the things that I wanted to always make sure, even kind of with the whirlwind of everything that has come to be in the past 2 years, is that I stay true to myself, but also kind of represent on the community side of things, where obviously massive obstacle to climb here. 6 foot six guy, 265 pounds. I get the hall brawl, not really leaning or benefiting to any of my strengths. And one thing that I always want to present is no matter what you're faced with, no matter how big it is, no matter how scary it might be, never back down and go into it with no fear, regardless of the outcome. Hold your head up high and get ready to come back for more. And that's kind of where it was at. I had two options when I heard that Theo was asking for me. I could have went and tried to appeal diplomatically. I could have went that route, but the New Jersey Italian in me said, no, it's time to bring it to your front door. And I heard you were saying this, so we're going to settle it. And that's exactly how it should be handled, I think, in every capacity. There's times for diplomacy, and there's times where diplomacy doesn't work. And I think that's one of those times.
I love that you stayed true to your Jersey self because we have to have some Jersey boys out here on the field, which is so good. I mean, did you even have, I know you said it kind of was a no-brainer, but was there a part of you that you were like, knowing that it could have ended this way, had you go fully into it? Was it kind of a thing where you're like, I can't change who I am, so I got to do this challenge versus I could maybe, if I played my cards differently, last a little bit longer, but then you wouldn't have been as authentically lasting?
It really could have been that way, and I did think about it. But I had too many conversations with people before the deliberation, kind of knowing where they were going to go with it regardless. And all I really needed from a fuel standpoint was to hear that he was asking for me. So in those conversations, when they said that he was asking for me, that's what flipped the switch from, okay, we had conversations that we were going to do what's best for the team and try and go as far as possible and then finish our stuff in the sand, if the game ever went to individual, and settle it there. So the fact that it was almost insulting for me to hear that he was asking for me, knowing that I was one of the better players on the team and can help the team win. So from that standpoint, it goes into, I'm going to send a message. Don't care how big you are, don't care how good you are. It's getting settled. I'm going to let you know and let the team know that there's no room for that kind of BS on the team. And when you go into the challenge, you don't know what kind of draw you're going to get for the elimination. So in my mind, I'm like, I can beat Theo in any elimination. Hall Brawl was the one in my mind where I'm like, this would be something I would not want to see. And even with that, Hall Brawl being down there, there was a 1 in 4 chance of it not being Hall Brawl. It just happened to be that way. I cannot look at it any other way other than the challenge gods made it happen in the realm that it did. And that's all that it is. So it's like I pick up that loss. I wear it. I reflect on it. I look at strategies that I could have did differently after the fact. There's a couple strategies in my mind that maybe could have worked out better, not just from a winning standpoint, but also from a concussion standpoint, and an injury standpoint. But it's just the cards I was dealt. I'm going to train even harder now, and make sure that when I do come back, Theo waited 5 years to hunt me down, but I don't think he realizes that by starting this back up, I'm now going to be relentless, until he decides to quit the show or bow out gracefully when it comes to this. So he's kind of brought back, and I needed that, right? I came back on USA 2. I really didn't have anybody to ignite a fire in me. I put to rest a lot of my past, but sometimes the past comes knocking on your front door. And I've got two options at this point. I could either be like, okay, he beat me. I'm going to try and avoid him at all costs moving forward, or I'm going to come for his neck every single time. So I choose the latter, because you don't lose in that fashion. You don't lose with somebody hunting you down in that way. And coming from the world that I come from, which is athletics and everything, it doesn't leave a good taste in my mouth. And I'm not going to do this. And I'm also not going to do it because of the people who chirp on the internet where, they watch Fessy destroy people smaller than him. And they're like, oh, it's not fair. Fessy's a bully for doing this. But then they watch me do the same thing against Theo, and their reactions are, oh, I'm glad he got humbled, blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, I don't think you would be saying this if I was somebody else. And I think people tend to jump on that bandwagon. And I think that it's weak. And I don't like weak people. And if you have never stood in the face of adversity and in the face of fear and still chose to jump, I don't think you should ever speak on things like this. So there's a lot internally that I'm going to be using moving forward, to make sure that the next time you see me, I'm going to be in the best shape physically and mentally that I've ever been in. And it's on. I think people have mistaken my kindness for weakness, and I'm not nice. I'm not going to be nice anymore.
Okay. Well, I mean, we love that. I mean, it makes for great TV, and Danny and I are here for this. I don't want to call it a threat, but maybe a
I
promise
promise.
for what Theo has in store for him moving forward. But it's really interesting you mentioning sort of the juxtaposition in the online reaction to your situation versus others who experience a similar situation. Do you think that has anything to do with you coming out this past year? Like, is it anywhere rooted in your bisexuality, do you think, or what do you think that is?
It's tough to pinpoint. Surprisingly enough, a lot of this comes from women.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't know why. It's very disappointing. It's very sad to see. Surprisingly enough, I get a lot of support from the community.
Yeah.
I expected to see more from like the straight male community of trying to jump on and be like, you're a, throwing every slur out there. They have actually shown way more support than the female community, who is very much like, I'm so happy to see him be humbled. I'm so happy that he shut his mouth, little chihuahua, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I could say a lot, but you're already saying it all by, opening your mouth and showing just like, whatever it is. Like, I really expected there to be more guys being like, yeah, he humbled his little like bisexual ass and stuff like that. But they're like, yo, you got a set of nuts on you, bro, for going in against a guy 2 times your size, running in full force, no fear, no nothing. I don't know. I wonder why that is. Because like on my side of things, you see them all show up to the rallies and the parades and all that stuff, but for them to kind of be there and support in that realm and not be in support in this realm, like I really don't know what it is. And it's interesting. I never would have thought that in something like this, it would be the females that are the loudest in the sense of like, yeah, you.
Yeah.
Also,
That's really interesting. Wow.
yeah. And also, not them calling you little chihuahua. I don't know if they know what a chihuahua is, and I don't think they follow you on Instagram because I don't think that's a comparison I'd ever use for you.
Chihuahuas don't have bodies like you, Paul.
No.
I appreciate that. Well, I mean, everything is perspective, right? I'm 5'9". I'm not tiny, but standing next to a 6'6", 260-pound guy, I'm gonna look like a chihuahua.
Well, I'm 5'7", so if you're a Chihuahua,
You're a teacup.
Yeah, I'm a teacup Chihuahua. Like,
Short and stout. Yeah.
yeah, jeez. But speaking of you being a part of the community, obviously you just celebrated a year of coming out. when you look back on the year and coming out and doing it so publicly, what are your biggest reflections, biggest takeaways? Is there anything you would have done differently? Do you wish you had done it sooner? What's the
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wish that I had done it sooner. Just not just from the standpoint that it was very supportive and it was very positive, but mainly behind the scenes, seeing how many people reached out to me, saying that I have now helped them, and parents saying that this is something they can relate to their children, who they're starting to see might be the same way, who are in athletics, and that's a very touchy subject when it comes to athletics and being part of the community, because there's so many things that are just there, and as you age it's night and day different, right? So I was very fortunate that like I didn't have any teammates come out afterwards and be like, hey man, were you like looking at me differently in the showers?
Mm.
Like it just wasn't that way. Like they still looked at me like the captain of the team, like they still looked at me as the guy who went to war with them. And they were very supportive in that. I don't know what that would have been like in high school or middle school if the kids on my athletic teams would have known that, but I'm hoping to open up that conversation that, just because we're competing together doesn't mean I want to, you know what I mean? And like I
Like
was a
sometimes I just
wrestler.
gotta shower. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
like
good.
I
Yeah.
was a wrestler and I was a soccer player and did MMA. So it's like, hey man, just because we're rolling around in this very tight singlet, nut to butt, doesn't mean I'm gonna get a boner while we're wrestling, because like we're competing. Like you're not being turned on while you're competing. If we were wrestling around in a singlet in the bedroom, maybe it's a little different. That's role playing. But you know, competition is competition, right? You like, I don't know what it is. I think there's something inside of us. It really switches off the blood flow down to that area. So like, you're not able to if you're able to get turned on while training and competing, I got to give you credit, because you got some type of libido. I don't have it, but whatever you're taking, I'll have like three.
It's
yeah.
fair that you could get like turned on after you win, but not by the person, but by winning. That's a yeah. You're like that's in that moment. That is my
Yeah.
sexuality, a gold medal. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Wait, but I also think it's such a thing too, where you're talking about like, oh, at that time when now it's also such a different generation where I feel like coming out in high school in like the early 2000s and mid 2000s versus now would have been such a different story, which is happy for the kids now, but like not wouldn't have been that happy for for back then.
It wouldn't have been. And there was just so much, back in the day that people didn't really know about. Like I always knew that there was other guys like me, that had attractions, to other men. And when I say like me, it's like in athletics, being that realm, like when I was in high school, people related gay to the theater kids and everything like that. They had never really been like, oh wait, you're also like, you could also be gay, like, and they didn't even know what like bisexuality was. So it was either you were straight or you were gay,
Mm.
and like there was just so much that I was afraid of, like my whole life, essentially, of like what would like everybody was already calling me sunshine and like calling me gay in high school because of the way I dressed, the way I looked, all of that stuff. So I essentially was showing people on the field that if you are going to call me those things, you better think twice, because just as easily as I could handle these people wrestling and playing soccer, I could also handle you if you disrespect me. And I remember getting into a lot of fights and a lot of things because of that, where I felt like I needed to beat up a guy who was being ignorant and disrespectful. And I felt like I needed to show him that and just kind of be like, well, you thought I was gay. Well, guess what? You just got your ass beat by a gay guy. You know what I mean? And that's just kind of where I was at. And I feel like I was able to put that defense mechanism down, like when I was finally able to talk about it. And I'm hoping that it could open up conversations for younger kids who might be going through the same situation where they're athletes, they might be attracted to men and women, and they don't want to, have to explain themselves to people. So like maybe instead of having to explain themselves to their family and friends, they could be like, I'm kind of like this guy.
Oh yeah.
And that's like, an easy way for people to relate and do it. And I do wish that there was more guys who came out in like athletics and, the fighting world, because there's a lot of them.
Mm.
and they're all just kind of like hanging. My DMs are full of them,
Oh,
and they're just like,
Woo.
hey, I appreciate what you do and everything. And I'm like, you could kind of help if you also did this, like especially in combat sports. There's really nothing more savage than beating somebody up in a combat sport. That could kind of help push it forward of like, hey, listen, we're everywhere. You know what I mean?
well,
And then you're like,
that's interesting that your DMs are flooded with guys who, are looking up to you, who want to potentially make a similar move, come out publicly. What is kind of like the one piece of advice you give? Is it, hey, do this, it's gonna get better? Like what do you tell them?
I just tell them that like we create problems in our minds that are bigger than it actually is. Because in our mind, we think of what we want to do, and instead of just like when we're children, we think of something and we just do it.
Yeah.
As we age, we think of what we want to do, and then we think of all the possible scenarios, good and bad. It's just human nature that we do it, and all of a sudden, we create this like massive weight that we don't even realize is like harming our mental, which affects our physiological. So what I say is I almost say like just rip the band-aid off. You know what I mean? Rip the band-aid off. Even if it stings, it's going to sting for a little bit, and then it's going to be better. It's going to feel better, and you're going to be fine. So I just urge them to just find it within themselves, the right timing, but make it the right timing within themselves, not with everybody else, because that was probably the biggest thing that I had anxiety about leading up to it last year was like, oh my God, here it comes. Here it comes. This is going to be it. This is going to like everybody's going to be. And I had every worst case scenario in my head. I wasn't even thinking about the positive um, scenario from it because, I was never met with positivity from being like comfortable in my sexuality. Like I remember when my brother was on Big Brother, I went and met with a friend in California. His name is Ryan. He rollerblades. He's rollerbladed in Madonna videos. He's an icon. And we did a rollerblading video where we were both in jock straps. And I that was me kind of like putting out there like I'm comfortable with this. And the way it was received online, especially from the Big Brother fans, was just very homophobic.
Mhm.
And I think that experiencing that is why I 100% did not talk about it on when I went on Big Brother,
mm-hmm.
and why throughout my entire TV career I kept it holstered down, because anytime that I showed any type of sexual side of me or feminine side of me or anything, it was met with you're gay. And every single homophobic slur that could come along with that. And, people jumping on being like, this is weird, that's weird. And I was so confused because I'm like, what is weird? Like theoretically, if you think I am straight, what is weird about me being comfortable with a gay friend of mine rollerblading with him? Isn't that kind of pushing the needle towards where it needs to be? And I was so very confused by that blowback that it definitely suppressed everything and made the pressure that much more every single season that I had done on a reality TV show. And I think once I finally ripped the band-aid off and it really wasn't that response, like of course there's a couple knuckleheads that are going to come in out of nowhere. It really has lifted a weight off of my shoulders, and I really just live a much lighter life. Like I don't get offended by what people say. I don't take offense or get butthurt by people saying things. I'm able to respond more clear-minded with things. I'm able to drag people in a way that doesn't come across as he's taking this personally. I'm able to just kind of be like, yeah, like it's a much lighter space to be in. So I tell anybody that's coming to me like, hey, do it for yourself, because your life is going to become exponentially better regardless of what some of the negative voices might be, because the overall thing is living a better life for the rest of your life. And that is, I think, what everybody should be striving for.
And of course, with you being so comfortable in your skin and talking more about this, I always, because like you've obviously been in such like a reality competition space. Is there a part of you that would ever want to like showcase more of like your day-to-day life in a reality lens? Or are you kind of like, I'm good doing that on social media and having kind of the divide where you just can more so share what you want to share on those competition shows versus like you're kind of signing up to show more of your life?
I would love people to take a look into my life on a day-to-day basis. I think that there's a lot of layers to me that we're not really able to see, and we're not really able to understand the lens of it and the scope of it on a competition space, right? Because no matter what my story is, it always comes back to the competition side and the game side. So I think having like a introspective look into my life and having a reality TV lens there, I think could do a lot of good, not just from people being able to understand me better, but also their understanding of like what being a bisexual man is, and all the different people that I come into contact with. You know what I mean? In the community, out of the community. Like if there's anything that I really want to like speak to, is that there's really not that many things that keep us divided from each other, or at least in my experience. Like, I don't really want to touch the politics of it, but like I've seen love on both sides coming to me, and then it has now opened up conversations in areas where I never would have thought people would have been open to conversations. And to be able to hear people be like, oh, well, I would have never expected that to come from somebody that's in the community. And I'm just like, we're like, to our root, we're not all that different. And I really want to showcase that, and I want to be able to educate people on what that's like. And I think it would do it would do more good than harm, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah.
totally. And I think that like bisexuality is something that a lot of people don't really understand. I feel like even within the community, like I'm sure you've felt it. Like I feel like people pass a lot of judgment on bisexual people, but I'm sure once you did come out, you felt so much love and support from others in the community, in the entertainment industry, in the reality TV space. Who are some of the people that you were able to connect with, maybe friendships that flourished in this space after you came out, people who reached out and you're like, oh my God, I never thought that we would connect, but now we're really good friends.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like I think there's levels to the understanding of bisexuality, right? Just like there is with anything else. So like the only time I've ever had people from the community kind of be against it are more like the older generations, where and I've said this so many times. I said I'm very grateful for when I decided to come out in the time space that I was able to. And I have to give credit to all the pioneers essentially that had to go through war and violence and everything that they had to go through. And I can't even imagine what that life and what that world was like, because I didn't live in it. I kind of grew up during the tail end of that as it was becoming more accepted. I mean, we learned about, like we read the Laramie Project in school. Like we knew about what happened in Wyoming, and we were taught why that's not okay and all that stuff. So there was at least more of an understanding and an acceptance as I was going through my childhood versus what they actually had to deal with. And I've said it so many times, like people like Sean T, one of my good friends, like he really helped me with this. Like he knew about it before anybody else. Frankie Grande, he knew about this. He helped me with it before anybody else. One of the open professional athletes, his name's DK Russell. He's with the Buccaneers. He has been somebody that I've spoken to a lot, in DMs, and he's pretty awesome on like everything that he's doing for the community. And there's so much more conversations to be had. And I think everybody's kind of jumping in support at this point. And I think that we've all, everybody who at least has known me my whole life has been very supportive, because they're just like, you're still Paulie.
Yeah.
Like we're still gonna like crack jokes at you the way we always have, like, and I would rather it be that way than any other way.
Totally, totally. When you were having those early discussions before you came out with the Frankie Grandes and the Shanties, what words of affirmation or encouragement did they give you that made you feel ready to come out?
Like I think one of my biggest concerns was like, I'm 35, like why now? And I think one of the biggest proponents was, Sean's husband, Scott, who said, like, hey man, I didn't come out until I was 38. He goes, and once I did, it was like a very freeing thing. And I think like the term that really rang true to me was like freeing,
Mm.
and like freeing. And I felt like there was a lot of weight on my back that I was putting there. And you know, the way that they just kept reiterating like how freeing it is to finally let that go. Um, that's what finally kind of pushed me to doing it. You know, because it's no secret, and I've spoken about this a lot, and you guys have seen a lot of it play out on TV. Is like, you know, mentally I was in like very dark space, and not to say that this was the only thing putting me in a dark space, because there's a lot of things that go into it, and I've been to a lot of therapy since then. But like once this kind of came off, it was like one boulder allows the next boulder to be pulled off until you're no longer carrying a sack of boulders on your back.
Right.
And I would have never gotten from point A to point B without this being one of the first steps.
It's also kind of like what you were saying too, how your friends have like your relationship hasn't changed at all with them, which is great. It's they would be upset with you if you did keep a secret from them that's about your life because they're like, we love you and we want to be there for you in every aspect. And like they weren't able to show up for you in ways because they didn't know that was how what they were supposed to be showing up for.
100%. And honestly, that's mainly the feedback that I've gotten from my friends and family is just like, dude, why didn't you tell us sooner?
No.
You know what I mean? Like you could have told us at any point. We wouldn't have treated you any differently or had any type of feedback. And they feel, and you know, I've said, hey, listen, like you don't feel bad about anything because they've all seen the mental decline, you know, that I've had, and now they see kind of like the mental like incline. And they're just like, you know, we saw that you were struggling, but like we didn't know what you were struggling over. And you know, we feel bad that we weren't able to be there for you in that time. And I was like, you guys just being there was enough. Because in ways, them being there and always checking in on me and always, you know, doing that kind of kept me from fully going over the edge and like diving into like a complete spiral that I couldn't get myself out of.
Yeah. Now that you do feel freer, you're able to be your authentic self, the boulders are off your shoulders. How has that invigorated your approach to reality TV? Does it feel so much better to be doing this job now that everything's out there? You know, like it probably must feel so liberating.
Everything feels much more liberating now. Like you know, you would have not seen the outfits that I wore on USA 2 and 40 if this didn't come to be. And like fashion was like one of the things that I always loved about my life, for better or for worse, whether my fashion was good or not. You know, I don't care. But like what I loved is that in my whole life, I was able to have my identity through fashion on top of through, you know, sports, also through music and through everything else. Like deep down, I am a theater kid. I always loved the theater kids in my high school. I wanted to, you know, be a part of the shows and I wanted to do all of that stuff. You know, but it would just kind of be like, why is this superstar athlete singing Rent down the hallways?
You're giving High School Musical. Yeah.
Exactly. High School Musical was huge when I was
Yeah.
younger, and like Zac Efron was an icon for that. You know, but fashion was also very much part of my personality in terms that I always was making statements with what I was wearing. Now, I can't say that I influenced other people to dress like me. So maybe my fashion sense wasn't the best, but I liked to dress like my favorite lead singers of rock bands. I loved Freddie Mercury. I loved Steven Tyler. I loved Axl Rose. I loved all of these people that I watched, and, you know, they were performers and I wanted to dress like them. And I dressed like them my whole life up until I, you know, got on reality TV. And then I dressed very cookie cutter as to what you would expect me to dress like and look like. So the fact that I can be more free in what I wear And no matter what anybody's opinions on it, I'm just like, I really don't care. I look good and I like the way I look in this. And it makes me feel nice. Is just everything that I would have hoped for.
I love that. Well, now I hope you are singing Rent at karaoke to make up for the lost high school times. Because I know my overweight theater kid self in high school would have happily sang with you then.
Yeah. No, I mean, I still sang Rent with the kids. It's just I never tried out for the role.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
So
now you can try out for roles.
Yeah.
We can see you on Broadway. I could see that happening. I am interested though. Like, obviously, you're such an icon in the reality TV space. You've been doing this for so many years, so many seasons. What other reality shows do you watch? Like, when it's time to unwind? Like, are you a reality TV fan?
I don't watch much TV. Period. Guilty pleasure is obviously RuPaul's drag race. Um, I from a reality standpoint, I don't watch any other reality shows.
Oh.
I don't even watch Big Brother. The only time I watch The Challenge is when I have to be there in order to, speak on it and do things like that. I pretty much stay secluded in that realm. I read more books than I watch TV.
Good for you.
What are we
Um,
reading right now?
right now, I'm actually reading Steven Tyler's biography about his life and everything with Aerosmith, and that's been really eye opening in a lot of ways. There's a lot of parallels as to like things that you struggle with when you're in the reality space of like identity crisis and who you have to be on stage and who you are off stage and how those things clash and how those things mesh. Um, and it's also been interesting to see his journey from start to finish. And I'm sending prayers to him because I just saw that he ripped his vocal cords and he may never sing again. So that kind of breaks my heart a little bit because I'm reading about how music is this man's life and how it essentially saved his life. And I just pray that he is able to find a new passion and something if his vocal cords cannot be recovered because I would hate to see a headline that is tragic in nature because he's no longer able to sing, and that's where I'm at. Now, so I'm about 3/4 of the way through that, and it's been an amazing read.
Okay, that's amazing. Maybe you need to start a book club. I can see Polly's book club happening. Oprah, watch out.
Oprah better watch out.
Dude, you saying that I too am praying for Steven Tyler's vocal cords, but like Celine Dion, she thought she was never going to be able to sing again, and here she is at the Olympics. Wait, you were also at the Olympics. What?
I I
How?
was.
Like, that's
That's
insane.
insane.
What? Tell us about your experience in Paris.
So my experience in Paris was a little bit more work than it was play. My production company was over there helping. So Lolo Jones is hosting a show. Can't speak on it too much, but it does involve Olympians. And my production company was the production company that was used to do it. So I wish I got to see more of the Olympics, but I got to see the pole vault guys, so that's really all I care about.
I mean, did you get hit with it? You were in Paris. I feel but
No, I was searching for him. I couldn't actually find him, but I at least got to see the event.
Wow.
be
Wait, so
careful what
you were there when the pole hit the pole.
I was there when the pole hit the pole. Like I woke up and that was the first thing that was going on. And I was like, oh man, everybody in America has no idea that this happened because they're all asleep right now.
Wow, you witnessed history. That's
I mean, I'm sure there are people vaulting into your DMs for years. I was gonna say probably after you came out, but I feel like guys would do it even before you came out, so the DMs probably are the same as they have been.
Yeah, I think I put on a very like welcoming, like I was definitely getting a lot before I came out. I don't know if I was giving off anything. Like Sean jokes around all the time. He's like, I knew,
Ah,
and like from the second he met me, and I'm like, you're lying. No, you didn't. He goes, I knew, and I was
I
like,
don't
okay.
know. I don't know what Sean what vibe he was catching, but I think just as a viewer and a fan, it wasn't necessarily I knew, but like we pray and we hope. Like
We
yes.
prayed.
Prayer candles, yes.
I think because Sean met me outside of the TV space, so he actually saw me on a day-to-day basis. So I think that's what he was referring to. But yeah, I definitely always had the DMs of prayer. And yeah, I mean now they're yeah, now I mean they're definitely flooded more now, but yes, lots
How
of
do you filter those DMs? And do you ever engage? Like if someone wants to send a spicy photo, are we double tapping? Are we reacting with a fire emoji, or do you just sort of like ignore it all?
I push any spicy conversation to my OnlyFans page.
Oh, as a businessman would and
As
should.
as a smart businessman, that is where all those conversations happen. I always respond to anything that is very, heartfelt or questions that have to do with thinking about coming out or like the experience and all that stuff. I do that. You know, I'm kind of a I don't know how to call myself, but I'm kind of like a little bit of a diva. Like I'm hard to get, or I play hard to get. Play
Ooh,
hard to get. So
love
when
that
people
for
are
you.
sending, sexy photos of their bodies and everything, I'll double tap. But I won't give them any emojis. I won't give them a response.
I gotta pay for that.
I'm like, well, it's not even that. It's like I'm kind of a classy, so it's like it's like you have to take me out to eat first.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank
Actually
you.
try and you have to try and court me. You can't just try and me. This is a little different. You
Yes.
know what I mean?
That's a proper Jersey boy. Yes, you're raised well.
Yeah. Proper Sicilian boy.
Yes.
I can't say that I've always operated in that way.
Yeah.
But if I am being pursued, when I'm the pursuer, I maybe have not always acted in that way. But when I am being pursued, I am going to make sure that you pursue me the proper way.
I love that.
Mom and dad raised me right.
I love that.
Is there one thing someone can say or do to grab your attention in the DMs to get beyond just the double tap in the heart?
I think just like being authentic in that realm. Like I don't respond well to the I can offer you this, I can offer you that, and blah 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 blah. It's more so like actually, approach me the way that you would approach somebody, like if you met them on the street, and try and have a conversation. Like, a funny pickup line is always going to get a response, because it's funny. Being vulnerable and telling me about your story and your life and your journey is always going to get a response. But once again, I'm not a quick fix in that regard. So like if you're starting the conversation, just nurture the conversation.
Yes.
Don't come in with something sweet and then the next thing be like, oh my God, you responded. Here's my dick. I'm gonna be like,
Hello.
I'm gonna be like, that just like ruined everything that was so sweet about what you just said.
You gotta, yeah, you have to have the, yeah, you have to have the, like the sweet, the nurturing, the slow build. I like that. Wait, because we don't have that much time before we let you go. Is there anything, because we're almost towards terrifyingly 2024. It's not over yet, but it feels more over than it ever has, which is crazy. Is there anything you are really looking forward to in your life accomplishing or doing before the year's done?
Before the year's done, there may or may not be a hosting position that I'm really hoping that I get, which would be absolutely amazing. Fingers crossed. We are sending all the good vibes out for that. There's from a company standpoint, like there's a couple milestone achievements that I want to do in that realm. There's a couple projects that I'm really hoping to film. I am going to be starring in like a comedy horror film.
Uh, love.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's going to be
The
filming
theater
in
kid in you is
November.
thriving.
Huh?
So the theater kid in you is thriving with the acting gig.
I feel like I manifested this in high school,
Oh,
which
yes.
is good. And that's really all I can hope for, other than like the health and well being of like the people closest to me. And I really hope that this year ends well for everybody. I know that there's a lot of craziness going on in the world. I'm praying and I'm hoping that we all as humans can come together and like protect each other, and support each other and put down the swords for a second and come together as like one human race. Like I feel like we're at a point in time where it is needed now more than ever. Like, and I don't want to go back to the 70s of like peace and love and,
But yeah,
putting flowers in like, the ends of rifles. But I really wish that we had a little bit of hippie love nowadays and peace and love and putting flowers, into, gun nozzles.
no, we
I don't
I,
know. Maybe that's the hopeless romantic in me, hoping that we can all, love each other and get along. But I really am praying for that. And I do think that the U.S. 100% needs it, but we're the example to the rest of the world, and I think the rest of the world needs it as well right now.
let's let's hope there's more of you in the world coming through because please, yes.
Paulie, thank you so much. It was so great chatting with you, and we're just so excited for you and all the good things happening.
Thank you guys. I love you guys. Thank you for taking the time with me today. It means so much.
Of
Oh
course,
my
of
God.
course. We'll chat again soon.
Cheers.
All right, bye.